are the most important fundamentals that I think one should focus on as a nice, happy path to learning software engineering. I think it's important to know these fundamentals about the software engineering process. So there's different, I guess you would say, stages or processes that have to do with software engineering. And this is something that I've learned over time now in these 10 years that I've been working in this. So that's what I want to do. I wanted to share that. So with new developers or current developers, just share my experience. This is what's helped me more as a software engineer to just learn all these different things that are used now, especially in the common software engineering world. So this will be like kind of a checklist that shows that about the software engineering fundamentals that matter. So actually this video is part of an article that I created before, which is, I think it's a really good article, but I also wanted to verbalize this and put it on video, which I think it could help, like I mentioned, developers on getting a nice happy path. Now the order is a bit different from what the article shows, but I'm gonna just mention the same fundamentals, kind of what the article mentions. So going back to the image here, it's important, like as a first step is, okay, obviously you have to get into the coding part, but pick a language. Pick a language that you think you can work with now. In software engineering right now, like JavaScript is pretty big now. I've been using JavaScript for a decade now, back when it was like ES5 and like older, like jQuery and all that. It's not even used anymore. But on the front end and back end, like JavaScript is pretty strong. On the back end, with JavaScript, you'll have like Node or Express, or even if you don't really want to use JavaScript, I would say like Laravel, for example. Backend, using Laravel, for example, it has like so many tools that you can use like out of the box, and it gives like a nice MVC type of structure. So pick a language and start learning from it. And after that, I think it's really important to know the fundamentals. So these are very strong fundamentals that every type of code that I touch, whether it's front end or back end, I make sure that I follow this. So solid for clean architecture, dry, don't repeat yourself. What else? KISS, keep it simple. Those are the different types of principles that you want to learn first on how to create your code either on the front end or back end, that I think will be a good benefit. First, learn those, what solid is, single responsibility principle, things like that, and you'll get a good concept of how to create your code starting as a beginner, or maybe even if you're like an intermediate developer, how to better create your code, making a clean code type of good architecture, both on the front end and back end. And of course, like I mentioned, with the codes, whatever code you pick, learn the fundamentals on the front end, like basic, like HTML, CSS. Me coming as a front end engineer, I learned CSS way back with like media queries and vanilla CSS and even vanilla JavaScript to get a good idea of how the language works now with ES7. So how it works, how the DOM works, and know what a component is, and then pick a framework on the front end. But first, learn the fundamentals on the front end with these languages. Don't go into learning the framework first, because I actually did that before and it wasn't a good idea. I remember I learned Angular when I didn't have good JavaScript fundamentals. So yeah, you want to not do that, because that'll be very painful. Learn the fundamentals first, what JavaScript is, the most important parts of JavaScript that can be integrated into a framework. So going back to the article, then using Git, like different ways you can create like Git branches, and integrating Git, for example, version control, how to track your changes, how to create like GitHub, using GitHub, creating branches, feature branches, merging like with what a main branch is, what a master branch is, what a development branch is, what staging is, and all that, and how to merge your code in different commands. This will help you as a software engineer on how to integrate your code, integrating with GitHub, Gitlab, Bitbucket, and how to manage other repositories and on these different platforms. Then there's the process of continuous integration and continuous development. So what is continuous integration? It basically means that when you're developing your code, creating a feature, creating a component, creating a functionality, whatever it is, you want to continue to integrate this into the main code repository, because this prevents like merge conflicts, like with other developers are committing their code, and then like you want to be able to merge that with your code and have the developers also see what you're integrating. And also this is important for passing like different tests, because when you integrate your code, it has to go through a different test, like with GitHub Actions and all that. So it's like the article mentions technologies to learn, Gitlab. Gitlab is like the whole process of creating like feature branches, the main branch, the development branch, and GitHub Actions, what are pipelines, and then using different tools like there's like Team City. I've used much more like GitHub or Team City, and a bit of also Bitbucket. Then there's like other technologies like Jenkins, and then use containers like Docker. Containers are basically, you have like a copy of something of the code environment, and then everybody shares this code environment. So it's like Dockerized in a container. So learn Docker, what a container is, and how to use containers in a development environment. Then I would say like learn the principles about what security is. So like the article mentions authentication, like on the front end or back end. What is authentication? So you create this is like probably once you're getting into like actually working with a framework, not in the beginning stage. But what is like authentication? Is it on the front end, like using like JSON Webtoken? What is JSON Webtoken? Like creating a login form or a password. You want to be able to integrate authentication, authorization, data protection, what JSON Webtoken is, Auth. And like on the back end, how this works, like with SQL, things like cross-site scripting, cores, things like that. Encryption, learn about what HTTP is, HTTPS, SSL, encryption processes, a web protocol. So those are different topics to learn that have to do with basic like security. So that you make a payment online, it's probably secure, and you'll see like HTTPS here. It doesn't show it here, but it's when you see this on a browser, like it's a site that is secure. So then you might want to go into learning about what performance is. So how apps can run faster, and like I mentioned, this is along later on when you learn like how to use integrating, like creating a basic application, for example, and then you'll learn how to make this application good performant. So faster performing, efficient resources, cleaner code, improving user experience. And then there's different tools later on down the line when you start working with different software. There's like different tools, monitoring tools for performance, like Datadog. I've used much more like Datadog. It monitors like the whole performance on the application, like on the front end. There is what's called here, if you go here, you can see like a lighthouse performance, how this performs. Like you can generate like a report here. This is a tool much more used like on the front end. But yeah, it has to do with like performance, and how would you integrate good performance like on the front end. If you're working like with React, there's like good hooks that you can use, or like the use memo hook, or that like is memoization, that basically means like whatever doesn't need to be rendered, it's not rendered. So learn how to performance optimize your application, and then there's like different tools that you can use for testing your performance, like I mentioned, Lighthouse or Datadog, or even like gtmetrics.com, for example. Like it can test your site and all that. Then learn about testing. So testing your code, how to make sure that it runs well and works well with other code. So there's different fundamentals in testing, and why we need testing. The benefits are that it can catch bugs, ensure the functionality works between different components, reliability, it improves reliability, and it enhances the user experience. So on the front end and back end, there's different testing frameworks that you can use. Like on the front end and back end, you have like unit testing. Unit testing is like the specific component, that unit, you're testing that component separately. That's why it's called like unit testing. And on the front end, you can use like Jest on the front end with React, with React, JavaScript, and on the back end as well, Jest, like using like Nest also on the back end. And then there's like end-to-end testing for like browser UI elements, and then like I really like using like Cypress, for example, like cypress.io. It gives you like a nice interface that it shows everything when it's being tested. I actually have other videos about that. I'm integrating like end-to-end testing with a backend and Nest, so you might want to check that out as well. Little plug there, but yeah, that is end-to-end testing, unit testing, and even on the front end there's like Vite test as well. Vite test is newer now, and like for React, the octopus here, that's like React, I think that's is React testing library. So there's different technologies in testing, and then if whatever language you pick, like if you picked JavaScript, then learn Jest, Vite test. If you're in .NET, if you decided to go with .NET on the back end, then like XUnit, or if Laravel, like PHP unit, and then like integration testing. What is integration testing? Basically means that whatever functionality you created and whatever test you created, make sure it integrates well with the other tests and the other components. So that is an integration test. So what it mentions is how to test interactions between different modules. Mocking, learn what mocking is like, okay, I want to mock this functionality in a test, like kind of mimic it. Mocking principles, functionality to simulate testing edge cases. So yeah, testing is a good important fundamental to learn. Then I would suggest learning about APIs. So what is an API? Application Programming Interface. Learn what an API is, how to consume an API from the front end, how to create APIs on the back end. So I would say start off like learning how to consume an API on the front end, like with JavaScript, like fetch like an API and then show it on the DOM, things like that. Like a basic, like I guess CRUD application, that just to get an idea of how to consume that data, show it on the front end, and then on the back end, creating that API, those different endpoints, whether you're getting, or learn what get is, getting, posting, those are the different like CRUD type of processes that you will be doing on the front end, and creating an API on the back end. So then there's also learning about what GraphQL is, compare what GraphQL is versus REST. Like GraphQL is basically like, if you learn what JSON is in APIs, JavaScript object notation, so it's like your data structure. So GraphQL will like show it whatever you're consuming in that same structure, kind of different from what REST is. So that's what I recommend. First, learn REST APIs. Play around with any type of like API, like a Google API, or very simple. Like I think I when I started off, there's like different, I guess like Marvel Comics characters API or things like that. Something not complicated to just understand how to consume an API, show it on the DOM and things like that, and compare it to how it works with GraphQL. Mostly like REST has been around much longer. I've used REST much more, but also have used like GraphQL, and there's some pros and cons. And also how to test an API. So there's tools like Swagger, which you render like on the backend and you implement it on the backend framework. And then it shows like a nice like interface on how to test your backend endpoints, or Postman, which is like a separate application. Here actually, this is Postman right here. So to test your API endpoint. So and also you can like test an API on the front end, even like on the network tab here. If you render, like, let's say you're loading an application, see like on the network tab, everything that has been loaded. So you'll see like the methods here, like, okay, it's the endpoint. Okay, so what a 200 is, what a 400 is, 200 is okay. It was able to receive all that well. If it's a 400, there's an error on the front end. If there's a 500, there's an error on the back end. What the payload is, what exactly you're consuming, that is a payload, like the data. And then you can see here like the response. So you can play around here with the network tab. The tabs that I've used the most would be like, for example, here, like what you're consuming here. Okay, this is your request URL. What you're posting, you're sending out. And then, okay, you were able to post that well. And the payload, like I mentioned, what you're getting back, your response, what you're sending. So yeah, so you can actually test that on the front end here, on the front end application. It's kind of like similar to what using Postman is. This here, here it is. Here is Postman. Yeah, so this is like, you'll get like, you can get, post, put, patch, delete. Comes in handy with testing APIs. And then like learning what are databases. So what are relational databases? What are non-relational databases? So here, like in the article, you'll see like there's SQL with a relational database. Relational, like the tables, and then non-relational will be like MongoDB. That it's not exactly using tables, so it's like JavaScript pretty much. And how they work, what are the benefits, pros and cons of using these types of databases. So like I mentioned, relational database, like Postgres, MySQL, pick one. Yeah, you don't want to get overwhelmed, but I would say learn the difference between a relational SQL, the one that's used a lot and has been around a lot, and NoSQL like MongoDB. And SQL, like when you create your front-end application, create a database, like a local database with MySQL, and then you can see like the tables, and then there's some tools that you can use, like Data Beaver. This is a cool tool that I've used before to view like your database tables and all that. There's different tools, you can, like SQL management server, which you can also use that, but this is for like a relational database, so you can view your tables and all that. So DBeaver is one that I've used before, and I continue using it, which is it's pretty good. And then like MongoDB is for like the MERN stack, MERN or mean, Mongo, Express, React Node, or mean, Mongo, Express, Angular, Node. So this is like kind of what you'll see like on DBeaver. I don't have anything showing right now, but yeah, you'll see like the tables here, and yeah, you can like research it. But this is a nice tool. Like I use Ubuntu if you see my computer. Yeah, and learning also, when you learn about databases, like how to store and organize data, retrieve data, data security, different fundamentals that have to do with databases. So understanding databases, and work with databases. Then there's infrastructure. So what is infrastructure? Like cloud. So working with different cloud infrastructure, like AWS or Azure, like for .NET. So learning about AWS is very massive. I've used a lot of different tools with AWS, like APIs like DynamoDB or Lambda functions, for hosting like AWS Amplify for like hosting front-end applications, or like Elastic Beanstalk for hosting a backend. And what else? Then there's like Cognito for like APIs, security. Yeah, it's very massive. I've used much more AWS. And also Heroku, like I've also used Heroku as well for deploying, and I've actually found Heroku to be more simpler and easier for deploying applications. But yeah, learning about cloud, which every company uses these tools, and it's very much used in every type of software development process. So they use cloud, learn cloud, AWS. Whether it's you want to go into the Microsoft route with .NET, then Azure, because that's like part of the Microsoft suite, and or AWS or Google Cloud. I haven't used Google Cloud too much. I would say like for me it was more AWS and Heroku. But yeah, that is infrastructure basically. So yeah, I mean once you like got all that process, then it's hooking up, creating a front end, creating a back end. Let's say you pick JavaScript, your client side, build the user interface with a framework or React or Angular, and then the backend, like if you picked JavaScript and with Nest, and create the database, connect the front end to the backend with APIs, and then deploying it like with AWS, like Amplify on the front end, things like that. So that's like putting it all together, pretty much. So when putting it all together, what I meant is then you can like create a project. So here in this article, I actually have created like a little 2-month plan. So I highlighted like a different process for week 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then like there's a little project here, like an idea of how to create the project. So overall, I think that is like the whole software engineering process, from learning the language, picking the language, learning about fundamentals, using the different tools, whether it's Git, continuous integration, cloud, databases, APIs, testing, performance optimization. This is the whole like package of software engineering, and most software uses, they all use this. So I would say learn these different engineering processes, and that'll help you just as a good happy path to learning software engineering. This is what I've learned in the 10 years that I've been working as a software engineer, and I wanted to share this because actually I didn't like have this clear path when I started off. Like, what do I learn? How do I go about learning it? Okay, do I learn how to code first? Okay, go over here. Like, yeah, so this is like the happy path to software engineering that hopefully will help you become a better software engineer and give you that easier path to follow. So thanks again. Hopefully you like that video, and hopefully it does help you in your software engineering career. And yeah, if you like that, then just give me some thumbs there. All right. Have a good day. Bye.